Subscribe to Storylab. Now let's begin. The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:47 a.m. when Austin Lamb's eyes opened. No alarm, no noise, just the internal clock that 16 years in Marine Corps Force Recon had permanently installed in his nervous system. He lay still in the darkness of his bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of the house settling, the distant hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the whisper of wind against the windows. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Natalie's funeral. 6 months since he'd stood in the rain watching them lower his wife into the ground while her father, Douglas Hendricks, stood 30 feet away under a black umbrella, never once looking at Austin or his grandson Charlie. 6 months of single parenthood, of making breakfast and packing lunches, of helping with homework and pretending everything was fine when a 10-year-old boy asked why Grandpa Doug didn't visit anymore. Austin had met Natalie at a veterans charity event in Boston 11 years ago. She'd been volunteering, he'd been transitioning out of active duty, trying to figure out what a force recon operator did in the civilian world. She'd smiled at him across a table of donated coats and sleeping bags, and something in his chest had shifted. 3 months later, they were married in a small ceremony that her father had attended with obvious disapproval. Douglas Hendricks had built a real estate empire across New England, and he made it clear that his daughter could do better than a jarhead with no college degree and a savings account that wouldn't cover a down payment on a decent car. But Natalie hadn't cared. She'd inherited her mother Catherine's kindness and none of her father's cold calculation. She worked as a paralegal, volunteered at Charlie's school, and made their modest house in suburban Connecticut feel like home. When Charlie was born, Austin had held his son and made a silent promise that this kid would have the childhood Austin never had. Stable, safe, loved. Then came the accident. Route 7, late at night, icy roads. Natalie's car had gone off the road into a ravine. The police said she'd been driving too fast for conditions, maybe distracted. Austin had identified her body and planned her funeral in a fog of grief. Charlie had cried himself to sleep every night for 2 weeks. Douglas Hendricks had shown up at the funeral with his wife Catherine, who wept openly. But Douglas had remained stone-faced, and when Austin had tried to speak to him afterward, the older man had simply said, "We'll be in touch about arrangements," and walked away. The arrangements had come through Douglas's lawyer, Jonathan Bullock, 2 weeks later. Douglas wanted to establish a visitation schedule with Charlie. Austin had agreed, hoping it might be good for his son to have his grandparents involved. But after 3 stilted Sunday dinners at the Hendricks estate in Greenwich, Charlie had asked if they could stop going. "Grandpa Doug doesn't talk to me," Charlie had said. "He just sits there looking at me weird, and he asks me questions about you." That had set off alarm bells, but Austin had filed it away, focusing on getting through each day. He'd taken a job as a consultant for a security firm, boring work reviewing protocols and writing reports, but it paid the bills and let him be home when Charlie got off the school bus. Now, lying in the darkness at 2:47 a.m., Austin felt something shift in the quality of the silence. His body went still, every sense sharpening. There, a faint scraping sound from the back of the house. The door that led from the kitchen to the backyard. In one fluid motion, Austin rolled out of bed, his hand already reaching for the Sig Sauer P226 he kept in the nightstand. He moved to the bedroom door, listening. Another sound, the soft click of the kitchen door closing. Then voices, barely whispers. 4 sets of footsteps. He could distinguish them by weight and gait. 2 heavy set, 2 lighter. Moving through the kitchen into the living room. Austin's mind went cold and clear, the way it always had in the field. Charlie was asleep upstairs in his bedroom, directly above Austin's first-floor master. The intruders were between Austin and the stairs. Bad tactical position, but they didn't know he was awake, and they didn't know what he was. He eased his bedroom door open an inch. The living room was dark, but he could make out 4 shapes moving with the clumsy confidence of amateurs trying to be professionals. They were dark clothes and ski masks. One carried what looked like a crowbar, another a baseball bat. The third and fourth both had handguns, holding them sideways like they'd learned to shoot for movies. Austin waited. Patience was a sniper's virtue, and he'd spent years in hides waiting for the perfect moment. The 4 men spread out, 2 heading for the stairs, 2 moving toward his bedroom. "Now," Austin exploded through his bedroom door, closing the distance to the nearest intruder in 3 strides. The man with the crowbar started to turn, but Austin's knee was already driving into his gut, doubling him over. A sharp elbow struck to the base of the skull, and the man dropped like a sack of concrete. The second man, the one with the bat, swung wildly. Austin ducked under it, came up inside the man's reach, and drove his palm into the intruder's nose. Bone crunched. The man screamed and stumbled backward, and Austin swept his legs, sending him crashing into the coffee table. "Contact!" one of the gunmen shouted, raising his pistol. Austin was already moving, using the falling body of the bat wielder as cover. The shot went wide, punching into the wall. Austin closed the distance, trapped the shooter's gun hand, twisted sharply. Another scream, the sound of breaking fingers. Austin stripped the gun away and put 2 round center mass. The fourth intruder, the other shooter, had made it to the stairs. He spun, firing wildly. 3 shots, all high and to the left. Austin dropped to one knee, acquired his target, and squeezed twice. The man toppled backward down the 3 steps he climbed. Silence. The smell of gunpowder. Austin's heart rate, steady. His breathing, controlled. He checked the bodies. The first man, crowbar guy, was still alive but unconscious. The second man, broken nose, was whimpering and trying to crawl toward the door. The 2 shooters were dead. Austin secured the survivors with zip ties he kept in the kitchen junk drawer, then checked the clock on the microwave. 3:07 a.m. 7 minutes. "Dad!" Charlie stood at the top of the stairs in his Spider-Man pajamas, eyes wide with terror. Austin moved quickly to the stairs, blocking his son's view of the living room. "Hey, buddy. It's okay. Go back to your room and lock the door. Everything's fine. I heard gunshots. I know, but you're safe. I'm safe. Go to your room, lock the door, and I'll be up in a minute. Can you do that for me?" Charlie nodded, tears on his cheeks, and disappeared down the hall. Austin heard the lock click. He pulled out his phone and called 911, gave the address, explained there had been a home invasion. Then he made a second call. Douglas Hendricks answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Who is this?" "It's Austin." A pause. "It's 3 in the morning. Your men failed," Austin said calmly. "All 4 of them. 2 are dead, 2 are alive, and we'll be talking to the police very soon. Do you want to try again?" The line went dead. Austin stood in his living room, surrounded by blood and broken furniture, and felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't random. This was deliberate, planned. And there was only one person who had reason to want him and Charlie dead. The question was why. The police arrived 14 minutes later, sirens wailing. Detective Anthony Sharp, a heavy-set man in his 50s with sharp gray eyes, took charge of the scene. Austin had already moved Charlie to the neighbor's house, asked them to keep him there. The boy had been shaking, asking questions Austin couldn't answer yet. By 5 a.m., the bodies were being loaded into ambulances, the survivors into police cars. Sharp sat across from Austin at the kitchen table, a recorder between them. "Walk me through it again," Sharp said. Austin repeated the story. Woke up at 2:47, heard intruders, defended himself and his son. 4 attackers, 2 guns, 2 blunt weapons. 7 minutes from first contact to securing the scene. Sharp studied him. 16 years force recon. "Yes, sir. You kill people for a living, then you come home and kill 4 more in your living room." Sharp's tone was neutral, but Austin heard the question underneath. "I protected my son," Austin said evenly. "They broke into my home armed. Connecticut has castle doctrine. I had every legal right to defend my property and my family." "I'm not questioning that," Sharp said. "I'm questioning why 4 men broke into your house at 3 in the morning. You have enemies?" Austin thought about Douglas Hendricks, about the phone call, about Natalie's funeral and the cold distance in her father's eyes. "I might," Austin said carefully. Sharp leaned back. "The 2 survivors aren't talking yet, but we'll ID them soon enough. You think of anything, anyone who might want you dead, you call me." He slid a business card across the table. After the police left, Austin called Roman Prince, his old platoon sergeant from the Marines. Roman had retired to New Hampshire, ran a small wilderness survival school, and was one of the few people Austin trusted completely. "Brother," Roman answered, voice gravelly. "You know what time it is? I need a favor." Roman's tone changed instantly. "What happened?" Austin explained. By the end, Roman was quiet for a long moment. "You think the father-in-law ordered a hit?" "I know he did." "Why?" "That's what I need to find out. Can you watch Charlie for a few days?" "I don't want him here, and I don't want anyone to know where he is." "Already packing a bag," Roman said. "I'll be there in 3 hours." While he waited, Austin cleaned the blood from his living room floor and thought about Douglas Hendricks. The man was 63 years old, self-made, worth somewhere north of $50 million. He'd started with a single apartment building in Hartford and built an empire through aggressive acquisitions and ruthless business practices. Austin had heard stories from Natalie about her father's methods: intimidation, lawsuits, occasional rumors of connections to organized crime, though nothing ever proven. But none of that explained why Douglas would want his own grandson dead. Unless Austin went to the basement, to the boxes he'd packed after Natalie's death. Her clothes, her books, her work files from the law firm where she'd been a paralegal. He'd meant to go through them eventually, but hadn't had the strength. He found her laptop in the third box, along with files from her last months. She'd been working on something, he remembered, coming home late, distracted. When he'd asked, she'd said it was a big case, couldn't talk about it. The laptop was password protected. Austin tried her birthday, Charlie's birthday, their anniversary. Nothing. Then he tried Force Recon, followed by their wedding date. The screen unlocked. Natalie's desktop was organized with military precision, folders labeled by client and date. Austin scrolled through, looking for anything from the months before her death. Most were routine: real estate closings, contract disputes, estate planning. Then he found a folder labeled simply DDH, Douglas David Hendricks. Inside were scanned documents, bank statements, photographs of meetings. Austin opened the first PDF and started reading. Natalie had been investigating her father. The documents showed a pattern of financial transactions between Hendricks Real Estate Holdings and a shell company in the Cayman Islands. Large sums moving offshore, then returning as investments through what looked like legitimate business ventures. Money laundering, Austin thought. But there was more. Photos of Douglas meeting with a man Natalie had labeled DW in her notes. Devin Wilkins. Austin recognized the name, Douglas's business partner, the silent money behind several of their biggest deals. And there were emails. Natalie had somehow gained access to her father's correspondence. Austin read through them, his jaw tightening. Douglas and Devin were running a scheme. They buy properties in declining neighborhoods, force out tenants through intimidation and manufacture violations, then redevelop and sell at massive profits. The emails discuss problem tenants and solutions, language that was clearly coded. One email from 8 months ago made Austin's blood run cold. "The Richardson matter has been handled. He won't be a problem anymore." Austin searched for Richardson, found a news article from the same week. Anthony Richardson, a 60-year-old tenant organizer who'd been fighting Hendricks Real Estate over building conditions, found dead in his apartment. Ruled a heart attack. Natalie had underlined a phrase in her notes. Dad called it a heart attack. AR was a marathon runner. Healthy. No history. She'd known. Natalie had discovered her father was a criminal, possibly a murderer, and she'd been collecting evidence. The last entry in her files was dated 3 days before her death. "Meeting with Jay Bullock tomorrow. He says he can help. Need to be careful. Dad can't know." Jonathan Bullock, Douglas's lawyer. Had Natalie gone to him for help? Or had Bullock told Douglas what his daughter was planning? Austin sat back, the pieces falling into place. Natalie's accident wasn't an accident. Douglas had killed his own daughter to protect his empire. And now he wanted to kill Austin and Charlie because of what Natalie might have told Austin. Because Charlie was a loose end. Because the boy would inherit whatever Natalie had left behind, including these files, and Douglas couldn't risk that. The doorbell rang. Austin grabbed his gun, checked the window. Roman Prince stood on the porch, a duffel bag over his shoulder. Austin let him in. Roman took one look at Austin's face and said, "Whatever you found, it's bad." "It's worse than bad," Austin said. "My wife was murdered. Her father ordered it. and he just tried to have me and my son killed to cover it up. Roman's expression hardened. What do you need? I need Charlie safe. Then I need to end this. Define in. Austin thought about the emails, the evidence, Douglas's cold voice on the phone. I'm gonna make him pay. For Natalie. For trying to kill my son. For everything. I'm in, Roman said without hesitation. Whatever you need. Charlie came home with the neighbors at 7 a.m. Austin packed his son's bag, explaining that Charlie was going on a camping trip with Uncle Roman for a few days. Charlie, still shaken from the night, didn't argue. He hugged Austin tight at the door. Are the bad men coming back? Charlie whispered. No, Austin promised. They're not. And I'm going to make sure no one ever tries to hurt you again. After they left, Austin made 2 phone calls. The first was to a former agency contact who owed him a favor. The second was to Jonathan Bullock's office, requesting an appointment. He had questions, and Douglas Hendricks' lawyer was going to answer them. The law offices of Bullock and Associates occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Hartford. Austin arrived at 10 a.m., dressed in a suit, carrying a briefcase. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a professional smile, asked him to wait. Jonathan Bullock appeared 15 minutes later. He was in his early 50s, tall and trim, with silver hair and a handshake that was a fraction too firm. The kind of man who measured dominance in small gestures. Mr. Lamb, Bullock said, I was surprised to get your call. Please come in. Bullock's office was all dark wood and leather, the kind of place designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Degrees from Yale hung on the wall beside photos of Bullock shaking hands with governors and senators. I appreciate you seeing me on short notice, Austin said, settling into the chair across from Bullock's massive desk. Of course, though I must say, given the circumstances, Bullock trailed off delicately. I heard about the incident at your home. Terrible business. For men broke into my house to kill me and my son. I'd call that more than terrible. Bullock's expression shifted to practiced sympathy. Indeed. Do the police have any leads? Not yet. But I do. Austin opened his briefcase, pulled out copies of the documents he'd found on Natalie's laptop. He laid them on the desk, watching Bullock's face carefully. The lawyer glanced down, and for just a fraction of a second, Austin saw a recognition flicker in his eyes before the professional mask slid back into place. What are these? Bullock asked. You tell me. My wife had them on her laptop. According to her notes, she came to you for help 3 days before she died. What did she want, Mr. Bullock? Bullock stood, walked to the window. Attorney-client privilege prevents me from discussing any meetings I may have had with Natalie. She's dead. Privilege dies with the client in most cases. In most cases, but not when there are ongoing legal matters that might affect other clients. Bullock turned back to face Austin. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Lamb. Natalie was a bright young woman, but I can't help you. Austin stood as well, closing the distance between them. Up close, he could see a thin sheen of sweat on Bullock's upper lip despite the air conditioning. Let me tell you what I think happened, Austin said quietly. I think Natalie discovered her father was running a criminal enterprise. I think she came to you, hoping you'd help her, maybe because she trusted you or because she was naive about where your loyalties lay. And I think you told Douglas everything. Bullock's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. 2 days after she met with you, my wife drove off a cliff on a road she'd driven 100 times. Funny coincidence. Roads are dangerous. Accidents happen. Not to experienced drivers on clear nights. I checked the weather reports. It was dry that night. No ice, no fog. Austin leaned in. But there was something else. The accident report noted her brake lines looked worn. The investigator thought it was consistent with the age of the car. But I serviced that car myself 2 weeks before she died. The brakes were perfect. Bullock's face had gone pale. If you're suggesting, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you. Douglas had my wife murdered, and yesterday he sent 4 men to finish the job by killing me and my grandson. 2 of those men are alive and talking to police right now. How long do you think before one of them gives up Douglas? Before they start looking at you as an accessory? Get out of my office. Austin gathered his papers. You know what's interesting about attorney-client privilege? It doesn't protect you if you committed a crime. When this all comes out, and it will, you'll have a choice. You can go down with Douglas, or you can save yourself. He dropped one of Detective Sharp's business cards on Bullock's desk. Think about it. Outside, Austin sat in his car and called the former agency contact, a man named Francis Donahue, who now ran a private investigation firm. I need surveillance on 2 people, Austin said. Douglas Hendricks and Jonathan Bullock. Everything. Where they go, who they meet, what they say. Can you do it? For you? Already on it, Francis said. I pulled some public records after you called. Hendricks is dirty as they come. You want the full workup? Everything you can find. Give me 48 hours. Austin's next stop was the Greenwich Police Department. He asked for Detective Sharp, was made to wait 30 minutes before the detective appeared. Mr. Lamb, didn't expect to see you so soon. Have your suspects talked? Sharp led him to a small conference room. One of them, Lester Garrison, low-level enforcer, works for a crew out of New Haven. Says they were hired for a job, didn't know who the target was until they got there. Who hired them? Says he dealt with a middleman. We're tracking that down. Sharp sat forward. But here's what's interesting. Garrison says the job came with a specific instruction. Make it look like a botched robbery. Kill you, kill the kid, make it messy. Who wants a home invasion to look messy? Someone who wants to send a message. Or someone who's not a professional. Sharp studied Austin. You said you might have enemies. Time to tell me who. Austin made a decision. He needed law enforcement on his side, but he couldn't risk them moving too fast and spooking Douglas before Austin had all the pieces in place. My father-in-law, Douglas Hendricks. But I don't have proof yet. Sharp's eyebrows rose. The real estate developer? That's a serious accusation. I know. That's why I'm not making it officially. Not yet. Austin slid Natalie's documents across the table. My wife was investigating him when she died. I think she found something, and I think that's why she's dead. Sharp spent 20 minutes reading through the papers. When he looked up, his expression was grim. This is preliminary, circumstantial, but it's enough to open an investigation. You're talking about money laundering, possibly murder. I'm talking about a man who killed his own daughter and then tried to kill his grandson. I need time to make the case airtight. Time for what? Austin met his eyes. To get justice. Sharp was quiet for a long moment. I've been a cop for 26 years. I've seen a lot of bad men walk because we couldn't make the case stick. If Hendricks is what you say he is, we need to do this right. But Mr. Lamb, Sharp leaned forward. You can't take the law into your own hands. You let us handle this. I will, Austin lied. I just want my son safe and my wife's killer behind bars. After leaving the police station, Austin drove to a storage unit on the outskirts of Hartford. He'd rented it years ago, kept certain items from his Marine days that he couldn't quite bring himself to dispose of. Equipment, weapons, tools of a trade he thought he'd left behind. He spent 2 hours taking inventory, planning. By the time he finished, he had everything he needed. His phone buzzed. A text from Francis. Got something? Call me. Austin dialed. Francis answered immediately. Hendricks just bought a plane ticket, Francis said. Private charter to the Caymans. Departing tomorrow at 6 p.m. out of Westchester County Airport. He's running. Looks like it. Also, your friend Bullock visited Hendricks at his estate an hour ago. They had what my lip reader describes as a heated conversation. Bullock left looking spooked. Austin smiled coldly. Good. Keep watching them. I want to know every move they make. That evening, Austin called Roman. Charlie was in the background, laughing about something, and the sound made Austin's chest ache. How is he? Austin asked. Good. Resilient kid. We're building a shelter in the woods. He's got natural instincts. He gets that from his mother. Austin paused. I need you to keep him there a few more days. Things are moving faster than I expected. You getting justice or revenge? Both. Roman was quiet. Be careful, brother. The line between the two can get blurry. The line disappeared when they tried to kill my son. After hanging up, Austin reviewed his plan. Douglas thought he could run, hide in the Caymans until things blew over, maybe use his money and connections to make the problems disappear. But he didn't understand what he was dealing with. Austin had spent 16 years hunting the world's most dangerous men in the world's most dangerous places. Tracking one corrupt real estate developer to an airport was child's play. Tomorrow, Douglas Hendricks would learn that you can't run from your past, and you can't escape the consequences of murdering Austin Lamb's wife. Westchester County Airport was small, catering mostly to private charters and corporate jets. Austin arrived at 4 p.m., 2 hours before Douglas's scheduled departure. He'd spent the morning making arrangements, setting pieces in motion. Now came the endgame. He parked in the long-term lot and made his way to the private terminal. Security was minimal, a single guard at the entrance, more focused on his phone than on screening arrivals. Austin wore a suit and carried a leather portfolio, looking every bit the businessman there to catch a flight. Inside, the terminal was quiet. A handful of travelers sat in the plush waiting area. Austin found a seat with a clear view of the entrance and the tarmac beyond, where a small Gulfstream sat being prepped for flight. At 5:30 p.m., a black Mercedes pulled up to the entrance. Douglas Hendricks stepped out, followed by Catherine, his wife. She looked frail, confused. Douglas had a hand on her elbow, guiding her toward the terminal entrance. So he was taking Catherine, probably for appearances, or maybe because leaving her behind would look too suspicious. Austin felt a flicker of pity for the woman. She'd always been kind to Natalie, to Charlie. Whatever Douglas had done, Catherine likely didn't know the full extent. Austin waited until Douglas cleared the entrance, then stood and walked directly toward him. Douglas saw him and stopped dead. His face went white, then red. "Hello, Douglas," Austin said calmly. Catherine looked between them, sensing the tension. "Austin, what are you doing here?" "I came to see your husband off on his trip," Austin said. "We have some unfinished business." Douglas recovered his composure. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but the men you sent to kill me and Charlie are in custody," Austin interrupted. "One of them is talking. Gave up the middleman this morning. The middleman is giving up his client as we speak. Would you like to guess who that is?" Douglas's hand tightened on Catherine's arm. She winced, pulled away. "Doug? What is he talking about?" "He's delusional," Douglas said. "The stress of the home invasion. The stress of learning you murdered Natalie," Austin said. His voice was still calm, conversational, but heads were turning in the terminal. "The stress of knowing you sent 4 men to murder your own grandson." Catherine gasped. "No, Doug, tell him that's not true." Douglas's mask cracked. His face twisted with anger and fear. "You can't prove anything. You're a nobody with a conspiracy theory." Austin reached into his portfolio and pulled out a thick envelope. Detective Sharp of the Greenwich PD disagrees. So does the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. See, it turns out when you start investigating money laundering through shell companies in the Caymans, the federal government gets very interested, especially when there's evidence of murder attached. He handed the envelope to Catherine. She opened it with shaking hands, pulled out copies of the documents Natalie had compiled. Her face crumpled as she read. "I had to protect what I built," Douglas said, and now his voice was shaking. Natalie was going to destroy everything. She didn't understand. She understood perfectly, Austin said. She understood her father was a criminal, and she was going to expose you. "So you killed her." Catherine's voice broke. "You killed our daughter." "I had no choice." Douglas's control was shattering. She was going to ruin everything. Decades of work. "She was your daughter." Catherine screamed, drawing every eye in the terminal. 2 security guards started moving toward them. Douglas grabbed Catherine's arm again, tried to pull her toward the exit. "We're leaving. Now." Austin stepped into his path. "You're not going anywhere. Get out of my way. Or what? You'll have me killed?" "Already tried that. Didn't work out well for your hired help." Douglas's hand moved to his jacket pocket. Austin saw it, recognized the motion. Gun. He moved on pure instinct, closing the distance, trapping Douglas's hand before the weapon cleared the pocket. He twisted Douglas's wrist sharply. The older man cried out, and a small .38 revolver clattered to the floor. The security guard arrived, hands on their own weapons. "Everyone freeze." Austin raised his hands, stepped back. "That man just tried to draw a weapon. I was defending myself." Douglas was clutching his wrist, his face purple with rage and pain. "He attacked me. I want him arrested." The guards looked uncertain. Other travelers were recording on their phones. Catherine stood frozen, still holding the documents, tears streaming down her face. Then Detective Sharp walked into the terminal, badge held high, followed by 2 Hartford PD officers and 2 federal agents in dark suits. "Douglas Hendricks," Sharp said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and about a dozen other charges the feds are still counting." Austin had called Sharp before coming to the airport, told him the plan. Sharp had been reluctant, but when Austin explained that Douglas would likely try to flee and might be armed, the detective had agreed to be there as backup. The federal agents moved in, cuffing Douglas as Sharp read him his rights. Catherine was escorted to a chair by one of the officers, who spoke to her quietly, explaining what was happening. She kept shaking her head, the papers from Natalie's investigation scattered on the floor around her. Douglas looked at Austin as they led him away. "You think you've won? I have the best lawyers in the state. I'll be out in 24 hours. "Maybe," Austin said, "but you're not making it to the Caymans today, and your lawyers can't help you with what's coming next." Douglas's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Austin smiled. "You'll find out." As they took Douglas away, Sharp approached Austin. "That was reckless. He could have shot you. He's not a killer himself, just a man who pays others to do his dirty work." Austin watched the Mercedes being towed away. "You got enough to make the charges stick? Between what you gave us and what our forensic accountants are finding, yeah. Plus, Garrison flipped this morning. Gave us names, dates, the whole chain. Your father-in-law is looking at 20 to life. And Jonathan Bullock?" Sharp's expression soured. "Slippery bastard. He's claiming he didn't know the full extent of Hendricks's activities, that he was just providing legal counsel. We're working on it, but he might walk." Austin had expected as much. Men like Bullock always had escape routes. "What about the hit on me and Charlie? Can you connect that directly to Douglas?" The middleman, Enrique Powers, says he dealt with a well-dressed older man who paid cash. Garrison says Powers told him the client wanted it to look like a robbery. That's thin, but combined with everything else with motive. Sharp shrugged. "DA thinks we can make it work." Catherine Hendricks approached them, her face ravaged by tears. "Mr. Lamb, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what Douglas had done." Austin believed her. Catherine had always seemed disconnected from her husband's business, content to manage their home and her charity work. "I know, Mrs. Hendricks." "Natalie," Catherine's voice cracked. "My baby. He killed my baby." Austin didn't have words for that. He'd spent 6 months drowning in that same grief. All he could do was nod. "Charlie," Catherine said suddenly. "Is he safe?" "Douglas, he wouldn't. Charlie's safe. He's with a friend. Somewhere Douglas would never find him." Catherine nodded, seemed to fold in on herself. An officer guided her to a car, explaining they needed her to answer some questions. She went without protest, broken. Austin retrieved his car and drove home as the sun set. The house was quiet, empty. He stood in the living room where he'd killed 2 men to protect his son and felt the weight of the past 2 days settling on his shoulders. His phone rang. "Roman." "Saw the news," Roman said. "They're calling it the arrest of the year. Real estate mogul charged with murder. It's just the beginning. Charlie wants to talk to you." There was a rustling, then his son's voice. "Dad, did you get the bad man?" "Yeah, buddy. I got him. He can't hurt us anymore. When can I come home?" "Soon. A few more days. I need to make sure everything's safe." "Okay." A pause. "Dad, I love you." Austin's throat tightened. "I love you too, Charlie. More than anything." After the call ended, Austin sat in the darkness and thought about revenge and justice and the line between them. Douglas was in custody, facing life in prison. But it wasn't enough. Not for Natalie. Not for Charlie's nightmares. Not for the 6 months of lies. His phone buzzed. A text from Francis Donahue. "Found something else. You need to see this." "Tomorrow," Austin replied. First thing. He had a feeling the story wasn't over yet. Francis Donahue's office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in New Haven. Austin arrived at 8 a.m. to find the investigator waiting with coffee and a laptop. "Before I show you this," Francis said, "I need to warn you. It's bad. Worse than my father-in-law ordering hits. Different kind of bad." Francis turned the laptop to face Austin. On the screen was a bank statement for an account in the name of a trust, the Charles Lamb Trust. Austin frowned. "I don't understand. I didn't set up a trust for Charlie. Natalie did. 3 months before she died. Put $5 million into it, with you as trustee and Charlie as beneficiary when he turns 18. Frances pulled up another document. The money came from her mother's family. Apparently, Catherine's father was old Connecticut money, left everything to her when he died. She gave half to Natalie years ago. I knew about Catherine's inheritance, but not that Natalie had set up a trust. Austin studied the numbers. $5 million would set Charlie up for life, pay for college, give him security. Why didn't she tell me? Because she was hiding it from her father. Frances opened another file. Look at this. Emails between Natalie and the trust attorney. She specifically instructed that Douglas couldn't know about the money. She was worried he'd find a way to contest it or tie it up in legal battles. Austin read through the emails. Natalie had been meticulous, setting up the trust through a different firm than Bullock & Associates, using an attorney in Boston who had no connection to Douglas's network. There's more, Frances said. Douglas found out about the trust 2 weeks before Natalie died. Ow! Jonathan Bullock. He wasn't as ignorant as he's pretending. Look, Frances pulled up more emails, these from Bullock to Douglas. They were coded careful, but the meaning was clear. Bullock had informed Douglas about the trust, about Natalie's investigations, about her plans to expose him. That son of a bitch, Austin said quietly. It gets worse. There's a life insurance policy too. Another $5 million, with Charlie as beneficiary. Combined with the trust, Charlie stands to inherit $10 million. But here's the kicker. If both you and Charlie die, the money reverts to Natalie's estate, which means it goes to Douglas as next of kin. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. That's why he wanted us both dead. Not just to cover up Natalie's murder. He wanted the money. $10 million is a lot of motive. Austin sat back, processing. Does Sharp know about this? I sent it to him this morning. He's bringing it to the DA. It strengthens the case significantly. Shows clear financial motive on top of everything else. Austin's phone rang. Sharp, we need to talk, the detective said. Your investigator's findings just bumped this to a whole new level. We're adding financial fraud and attempted inheritance fraud to the charges. We're also issuing a warrant for Bullock's arrest. The emails prove he wasn't just a passive observer. Good. There's something else. Hendricks is trying to make bail. His lawyer's arguing he's not a flight risk, but given he was literally trying to flee the country when we arrested him, I don't think the judge will buy it. Bail hearings tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. Austin hung up and looked at Frances. Anything else I should know? Frances hesitated. There's one thing. Your wife's accident. I had a guy look at the police report, the physical evidence. The brake lines weren't just worn, they were cut. Deliberately, professionally. Made it look like wear and tear. Austin's hands curled into fists. Who did it? Can't say for sure, but I found something interesting. Devin Wilkins, Hendricks's business partner? He owns a garage in Hartford. Employs a mechanic named Barry Vaughn who did time for assault and has mob connections. 2 days before Natalie's accident, Vaughn took a personal day. No explanation. You think Wilkins ordered the hit for Douglas? I think it's worth looking into. I've got surveillance on Wilkins now. If he contacts Vaughn or Douglas tries to reach out to him, we'll know. Austin thought about Devin Wilkins. He'd met the man twice at family events, found him slick and calculating. If he'd helped Douglas murder Natalie, he was just as guilty. Keep digging, Austin said. I want everything. The bail hearing the next morning was held in Hartford Superior Court. Austin sat in the gallery, watching Douglas Hendricks shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit. The man looked diminished, older. Catherine sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, refusing to look at her husband. Douglas's attorney, a sharp-dressed man named Arnold Fuller, made his case. His client was a pillar of the community, had never been in trouble with the law, had deep roots in Connecticut. The charges were based on circumstantial evidence and the testimony of career criminals looking to cut deals. The prosecutor, a woman named Jacqueline Whitaker, methodically destroyed every argument. She presented the financial records, the witness statements, the emails from Bullock. She explained the inheritance angle, the $5 million trust, and the life insurance policy. She detailed Natalie's investigation and the suspicious nature of her death. Your Honor, Whitaker concluded, Douglas Hendricks murdered his own daughter to protect his criminal enterprise and to gain access to her money. He then attempted to murder his son-in-law and grandson for the same reason. This man is not only a flight risk. We arrested him literally trying to board a plane to the Caymans. He's a danger to anyone who threatens his freedom or his fortune. The people request he be held without bail. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, didn't hesitate. Bail is denied. Mr. Hendricks will be remanded to custody pending trial. Douglas's composure finally broke. He stood shouting, "This is a conspiracy. That man," he pointed at Austin, "he attacked me. He's trying to steal my daughter's money." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Hendricks, sit down and be quiet, or I'll add contempt to your charges." As they led Douglas away, he locked eyes with Austin. The rage there was pure, undiluted. Austin stared back, unblinking, until the guards pulled Douglas through the door. Outside the courthouse, Whitaker approached Austin. "Thank you for your cooperation. The evidence you provided has been invaluable. Will it be enough? We've got him on money laundering and conspiracy. The murder charges will be harder to prove. Natalie's death was ruled accidental, and getting that reopened requires new evidence. But your investigators' findings about the brake lines might be enough. We're exhuming her body tomorrow to check for other signs of foul play." Austin's stomach turned at the thought, but he nodded. "Whatever it takes." "There's one more thing," Whitaker said. "We arrested Jonathan Bullock this morning. He's already trying to cut a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Full testimony against Hendricks in exchange for reduced charges." "We haven't agreed yet, but—" She shrugged. His cooperation could seal the case. Austin thought about it. Bullock testifying would mean Douglas had no escape, but it also meant Bullock might walk away with minimal punishment for his role in Natalie's death. "Don't let him off easy," Austin said. He knew what he was doing. "I'll do my best." That afternoon, Francis called again. "Wilkins is on the move." Drove to the garage where Vaughn works. They met in the office, talked for 20 minutes. My lip reader couldn't make out everything, but she caught Hendricks arrested and exposure. They're worried. More than worried. Wilkins left the garage and went straight to his lawyer's office. Stayed there 3 hours. Looks like he's preparing for incoming. Good. Let him sweat. But Austin wasn't content to let Wilkins just sweat. If the man had helped murder Natalie, he deserved more than legal trouble. He deserved to understand what it felt like to lose everything. Austin made a call to an old contact from his military days, a man who worked in corporate intelligence. "I need a favor," Austin said. "Devin Wilkins. I need to know everything about his business dealings, particularly anything that might be questionable." "How questionable?" "Enough to destroy him. Give me a week." Austin had time. Douglas was locked up, Charlie was safe with Roman, and the legal machinery was grinding forward. He could afford to be patient. But patience had limits, and Devin Wilkins was about to discover that protecting a murderer came with consequences. 1 week later, Austin's corporate intelligence contact delivered. The dossier on Devin Wilkins was damning. Over the past decade, Wilkins had been involved in multiple questionable deals, bribing city officials to secure zoning changes, falsifying inspection reports, and most interestingly, partnering with a development firm that had suspected ties to organized crime. But the real gold was recent. Wilkins had been embezzling from his partnership with Douglas, skimming money from their joint accounts into offshore holdings. He'd been planning his own exit strategy, likely anticipating that Douglas's schemes would eventually collapse. Austin made copies of everything and hand-delivered them to 2 places: Detective Sharp's office and the Hartford Courant's investigative journalism department. 3 days later, the story broke. The Courant's headline read, "Hendricks' partner implicated in fraud scheme." The article detailed Wilkins's embezzlement, his connections to organized crime, and raised questions about his potential involvement in tenant intimidation and possibly worse. Wilkins was arrested that afternoon. Austin watched the news coverage from his living room, a cold satisfaction settling in his chest. 2 down. Barry Vaughn, the mechanic, was picked up the same day for questioning about Natalie's car. Under pressure, he admitted he'd been paid to sabotage the brake lines. He claimed he'd thought it was just meant to scare someone, not kill them, but the DA wasn't buying it. He was charged as an accomplice to murder. Jonathan Bullock, seeing the walls closing in, took the deal Whitaker offered. He would testify fully against Douglas and Wilkins in exchange for pleading guilty to obstruction of justice and receiving a suspended sentence. The news hit Austin hard. Bullock would do no prison time. He called Whitaker. "This is justice? He helped murder my wife and walks free. He'll never practice law again. His reputation is destroyed. And without his testimony, Hendricks might beat the murder charge." Whitaker's voice was firm but sympathetic. "I know it's not what you want, but sometimes the system requires compromise." Austin hung up, rage burning in his throat. But he tamped it down, focused. Bullock's freedom was a bitter pill, but if it put Douglas away for life, it was worth it. The trial began 6 weeks later. Austin attended every day, sitting in the front row where Douglas could see him. Charlie was back home, seeing a therapist to work through the trauma, slowly returning to normal. Roman stayed in Connecticut, providing extra security and support. Bullock's testimony was devastating. Over 3 days, he laid out everything. How Douglas had discovered Natalie's investigation, how he'd panicked and decided she had to be silenced, how Wilkins had arranged the hit through Vaughn. Bullock detailed the planning, the meetings, the coded conversations. He said it had to look like an accident. Bullock testified. Natural causes or a crash. Something that wouldn't raise suspicions. Douglas's attorney tried to paint Bullock as a liar trying to save himself, but the evidence backed up every claim. The financial records, the emails, the witness statements from Garrison and Powers about the hit on Austin and Charlie. The most powerful testimony came from Catherine Hendricks. Taking the stand, pale and trembling, she described her husband's behavior in the weeks before Natalie's death. "He was angry all the time," she said. "I asked him what was wrong, but he wouldn't tell me. The day after Natalie died, I found him in his study. He wasn't crying. He was relieved. I didn't understand then, but now." Her voice broke. "He killed our daughter for money and power." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty of attempted murder, guilty of money laundering, guilty of fraud. Douglas showed no emotion as the verdicts were read, but Austin saw his hands trembling on the defense table. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, the same stern woman from the bail hearing, showed no mercy. "Mr. Hendricks, you abused your position, betrayed your family, and murdered your own daughter to protect your criminal empire. You then attempted to murder your grandson, an innocent child. The law provides for life imprisonment in cases of this severity, and I see no reason to deviate from that. You are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on the murder conspiracy charge, with additional consecutive sentences totaling 40 years on the remaining counts." Douglas finally reacted, his face crumpling. No, you can't. Guards, remove the prisoner." As they led him away, Douglas looked at Austin one last time. Austin met his gaze, unflinching. This was justice. Not complete, not perfect, but real. Devin Wilkins and Barry Vaughn received their own trials and sentences over the following months. Wilkins got 25 years for his role in Natalie's murder and his embezzlement. Vaughn, who'd taken a plea deal and testified against both Douglas and Wilkins, received 15 years. Jonathan Bullock left Connecticut, disbarred and disgraced. Austin heard he'd moved to Florida, working as a paralegal under a different name. It wasn't enough, but it was something. 6 months after Douglas's sentencing, Austin stood in his backyard watching Charlie play with a soccer ball. The boy was laughing, the sound bright and clear. The nightmares had mostly stopped. The fear had faded. Roman sat on the deck beside Austin, beer in hand. "Kid's doing good." "He is." Austin took a drink from his own beer. "Better than I expected. Kids are resilient, especially when they've got a good father." Austin thought about Natalie, wished she could see their son now. "I'm selling the house." Roman raised an eyebrow. "Fresh start. Something like that. Too many bad memories here. Figured we'd move north, maybe New Hampshire. Charlie could use some space, some woods to explore. Be neighbors then. I'd like that." Catherine Hendricks had reached out a month ago, asking if she could see Charlie. After discussing it with his therapist, Austin had agreed to supervised visits. Catherine was broken by what Douglas had done, but she was still Charlie's grandmother. She deserved a chance to know her grandson, and Charlie deserved to have family. The first visit had been awkward, painful, but Catherine had brought photos of Natalie as a child, shared stories Charlie had never heard. By the end, they were both crying, but it was a healing kind of tears. Austin's phone buzzed. A text from Detective Sharp. Thought you'd want to know. Hendricks was attacked in prison yesterday. Inmates stabbed him in the cafeteria. He'll live, but he's in the hospital wing. Austin read the message twice, felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just a distant acknowledgement that even in prison, Douglas had made enemies. He pocketed the phone and called to Charlie. Hey buddy, want to kick the ball around? Charlie's face lit up. Yeah. As they played in the fading sunlight, Austin felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The nightmares still came sometimes. Flashes of the home invasion, of Natalie's funeral, of the moment he'd realized his father-in-law had murdered his wife. But they were fading. Justice had been served. His son was safe. They had a future. That night, after Charlie was asleep, Austin pulled out the box of Natalie's things one last time. Her laptop, her files, her investigation into her father. He'd kept it all as evidence, but now the trial was over, the appeals exhausted. He didn't need it anymore. He backed up the files to an encrypted drive, locked it in a safe deposit box. Then he deleted everything from the laptop, wiped it clean. Some of Natalie's clothes and personal items he packed for Charlie to have when he was older. The rest he would donate. In the bottom of the box, he found a letter. His name in Natalie's handwriting. His hand shook as he opened it. Austin, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I don't know what, but I know it's connected to what I've discovered about my father. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. I wanted to protect you and Charlie from this. My father is a dangerous man, more than I ever knew. He's hurt people, Austin, maybe even killed them. I have to expose him, but I'm scared. If something happens, please know I love you more than anything. You and Charlie are my whole world. Take care of our son. Keep him safe. Don't let my father anywhere near him. And don't blame yourself. Whatever happens, it's not your fault. It's his. I love you forever, Natalie. Austin sat in the silence of his bedroom, tears streaming down his face, the letter clutched in his hands. She'd known. She'd known the risk and taken it anyway, trying to protect others from her father's crimes. I got him, Austin whispered to the empty room. He'll never hurt anyone again. You can rest now. He folded the letter carefully, placed it in his wallet where he could carry it with him. A reminder of what he'd fought for, what he'd protected. The next morning, Charlie came downstairs for breakfast to find Austin making pancakes. Dad, Charlie said, you okay? Your eyes are red. Yeah, buddy. I'm good. Just missing Mom. Charlie climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island. I miss her too, but I had a dream about her last night. She said she was proud of us. Austin's throat tightened. Yeah. She said we're going to be okay. She said you're the best dad ever and that I should listen to you. Charlie grinned, except about eating vegetables. She didn't say anything about that. Austin laughed, the sound breaking through the weight in his chest. Nice try. You're still eating your broccoli. As they ate breakfast together, Charlie chattering about his upcoming soccer game and a field trip his class was taking, Austin felt the last piece of darkness lift. They would be okay. More than okay. Douglas Hendricks was locked away forever. His accomplices were paying for their crimes. Charlie was healing, growing stronger every day. And Austin Lamb, former Marine Force Recon operator, had done what he set out to do. Protect his son and get justice for his wife. Sometimes that's all a father can do. And sometimes it's enough.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.